Welcome to HFY Stories. Please subscribe to the channel. Your one click means the world to me. The scanners went dark first. Every camera in Gorvax's lower tier, all at once, like the mountain itself had blinked. Guards who'd worked that fortress for years later swore they saw one figure move through 3 checkpoints without a single alarm sounding, and none of them could agree on what she looked like. I didn't know any of this yet, standing in my own shop that morning. I'm only telling it to you now the way I pieced it together afterward, the middle before the beginning, because that's how Nox always did things. I've dealt weapons on this station for 40 cycles, plasma rifles, energy blades, projectile guns from a dozen worlds, and every species that's ever walked through my door wanted the same thing, the loudest gun they could afford. Then a human came in wearing armor stitched from salvage and spite, and asked for something that would actually cost her effort to use. Vera Knox, she told me, once she'd already dropped a fist of credits hard enough to rattle my display case. Small for her kind, barely past my shoulder, with a grin that made you want to buy her a drink or throw her out the door. She wanted a weapon that separated the professionals from everyone else. I took her to the back, where the Velta hunting bow had sat gathering dust longer than she'd been alive, 3 meters of curved bone from a beast that once terrorized my homeworld, strung with spider silk that hummed if you touched it wrong. Built for Gra hunters, 4 arms each, strength enough to bend hull plating, an 800-kilo draw. I told her flatly that her arms would come out of their sockets before that string ever moved for her. She looked at the bow the way some people look at a door they've already decided to walk through. How much? I named a figure meant to end the conversation. She paid it to the decimal without blinking and reached for the weapon like my warning had evaporated the moment it left my mouth. I should have kept the sale simple. Instead, I found myself trailing her hover bike out to a dead mining facility, mostly to watch physics correct her. It didn't. She planted her feet in the dust of that ruined loading dock and began to pull the string back. Her arms shook. Sweat cut lines through the grime on her jaw. The string held, and then, against everything I understood about leverage and muscle and bone, it moved. A few centimeters, then more. She held full draw for 3 seconds before she let go, and the arrow went through a steel support beam like the beam was a suggestion. Not bad for a first try, she said, already reaching for the next arrow, as if she hadn't just broken something I'd believed for 4 decades. Everyone assumes they know what my species can't do, she added, drawing again, easier this time. We tend to treat that like a dare. The third shot dropped a section of roof. She slung the bow over her shoulder afterward like it had always lived there, and said almost nothing on the ride back. A week passed before she returned, and this time it wasn't for arrows. She set a locked case on my counter, a bioscanner built into the latch, and opened it on more credits than I usually saw in a season. I need everything you have on a facility called Gorvax, she said. Guard rotations, transport schedules, access points, all of it. I asked what a woman with one very good bow wanted with a Sithari hegemony stronghold. Slavers who made other slavers look like charity workers by comparison. She didn't answer, just placed a second chip on the counter, and something in her face told me not to ask again. I gave her what I had. Schematics, patrol timings, the location of the processing wing buried deep in the mountain behind 3 checkpoints and 3,000 guns. I told her plainly that even getting in wouldn't matter, that a place like Gorvax didn't let people leave. She only smiled, the same look she'd given the bow. You're still thinking about walls, she said. The fastest way past a fortress isn't through them. It's making the people inside believe you already belong there. She left before I could ask what that meant, and I didn't hear from her for 2 weeks. Then the feeds broke the story I'd already half lived through without knowing it. The failed cameras, the jammed channels, the transport manifests scrambled into garbage. Somewhere inside that confusion, a single figure had walked down to the lowest level of Gorvax and opened every cell on the way. By the time reinforcements arrived, 800 people had vanished with no trace of how. 3 days later, Knox walked back into my shop, and this time there was a girl beside her, same stubborn eyes. Same refusal to look impressed by anything. Krath, Nox said, "This is Maya." I looked between them and finally understood what I'd been too polite to ask 2 weeks before. "She's yours," I said, "not a question." Nox's grin fell away, and for the first time since I'd met her, her voice had no performance left in it. She was in the hydroponics bay when they came for the colony. 1,200 people, ages 15 to 30, taken to pay off a trade debt the hegemony invented out of nothing. Her hand found Maya's shoulder, not gently, like she still needed to check she was real. "I didn't tell you why I needed Gorvax's floor plan, Krath, because I didn't want you carrying that weight if it went wrong. It didn't go wrong." Maya spoke into the silence after that, calm in a way that unsettled me more than the number of guards ever had. She wore a face that wasn't hers for 4 days. Half their command structure thought she outranked them. A small, hard smile, her mother's exactly. The other half found out what happens when you take somebody's kid. I asked how a rebuilt scanner and 4 days of nerve had beaten 3,000 soldiers. Nox pulled the device from her jacket, cheap surplus, patched together, and said their bioprofiles simply had no entry for humans yet. She'd walk their halls as whatever species she needed to be, until the whole garrison was chasing shadows of its own making, and 800 slaves rode out on the hegemony's own reprogrammed ships, scattered to a dozen systems before anyone thought to count them. At the door, she turned back the way she always did when she wasn't finished with me. "I have a proposition," she said. "Money, and the chance to make some very unpleasant people considerably less comfortable." What would I be supplying? "An outfit," Maya said, before her mother could. "We're calling it the Broken Chain Initiative." I thought about the fortress I'd sworn was unbreakable, and the 800 people no longer inside it. "When do we start?" The Sithari hegemony didn't survive the year, not to a fleet or a treaty, just to months of quiet liberation until they had no product left to sell and no name worth trusting. Other outfits learned to give human space distance after that, unwilling to test what else the rules apparently didn't apply to. Nox brought the bow back to me not long after Gorvax said she'd found something she liked better. When I asked what could top a weapon that dropped a mountain's worth of steel, she just smiled and let the question sit. "It hangs in my shop still, and most evenings I take it down myself instead of leaving it to the cleaning drones. Running a cloth along the same curve of bone I once swore no human hand would ever move, remembering the sound it made the day one did."